Hi, I'm going to be reading different stories from my favorite book series for my daughter, Odessa. Maybe in the future I pass away or I'm not here. Maybe my daughter will miss me. So I'm going to read stories for her so that in the future she can remember me. Okay, I'm going to start with Night Creatures from the Enchanted World series. My favorite. So much my favorite that the book is wearing out. See? So I'll pick up part of it. Here's the first story. It says, perilous paths through the dark. On its sea-battered Danish island, where more grasses bowed before the icy blasts of winter winds, the golden-gabled Skilding Hall, called Hiorat, was built as a beacon, a lamp to shine through the long northern nights. Within this hall, hearths and torches blazed warm and bright, and drinking horns passed freely among the warriors of the Skaladin clan. Bards intoned the praises of their chieftain, Hrothgar, the valorous king. Harpists sang of warmth and light. Outside the hall, however, solitary in the cold and dark, another kind of being walked. Although manlike, that being was no man. Huge and hairy, it shambled through the nights, mists of fell and fin, its claws scrambling from time to time in the dirt as it tore at its hapless prey, hares, ferrets, and other small beasts. It was old as the making of the world. For unnumbered centuries it had roamed the land after nightfall, unaware of humankind. Inevitably, however, its attention was attracted to the hall, perhaps by moonlight on the gilded roof, perhaps by the shafts of brightness that shone out across the moor. At length it made its way across the island and stood outside the towering walls of Herot. Flinching and blinking at the radiance within, harp music floated in the air. The beast's clawed hands began to curl, and rumble issued from its throat. A joyless being, it was enraged by the joyful songs of men. Whether because it feared the light, or because some dark of cunning informed its actions, the creature waited in the shadow until the singing ceased and the glow from the hearth fires dimmed. When the hall was silent and Hrothgar's warriors were trapped in dreams on their pallets, it struck, shoving at Hero's great doors. With a groan they gave way. Into the dim chamber the huge form lurched, its head swinging from side to side, its nostrils flaring at the human scent. It feasted then, grasping the warriors in its talons, crushing the bodies, tearing at sinews and cracking bones in its jaws. At last, when the hair at its gaping mouth was matted with blood, it returned to the darkness. For the moment the beast was sated, but it dragged 2 victims away into its lair. The rest were left where they lay, gruesomely mangled. A few fortunate men had huddled unnoticed in the corner of the hall and survived to tell the tale. Thus began the siege of Herot, the horror that endured for 12 long years. On random nights, when the creature attacked, brutally squeezing the life from warriors within the hall, no man could resist such strength. No weapon could do the beast harm. So its powers and cruelty were of measure beyond human experience. Soon, the island roads were lined with grave mounds. Hrothgar's remaining warriors dared to come no more to Harrow. At night they huddled in their own lesser halls, locked in with their sheep and cattle, fearing to venture abroad. Golden Harrow lay dim and cold, abandoned, save for the creature that clumsily capered there on moonless nights. The Skeladings called this being Grendel, a name that meant grinder. Word of the Skelding's woe, of the weakening of the warriors and the destruction of the kingdom, spread to distant shores. Most men shunned the island, but one sought it out. He arrived clad in mail and bearing noble arms. 14 companions, warriors all, came with him. The watchman at the shore who challenged the stranger when his long ship grated onto the shingle recognized his name. So did Hrothgar. When it was given, the newcomer was Beowolf, a young lord of the Geatish kingdom to the east. His name, Beowolf, for bear, signified his enormous strength. In him, valor, comeliness, and charity were present in a way that set him apart from other men. Beowulf was a hero, a light to the people in the Dark Age. He had come to battle Grendel, so he came to tell Hrothgar, and the Skelding king honored him for his courage. Once more, hearth fires blazed in Harrow, and their smoke rising through the holes among the rafters blew like flags in the evening air. Once more, men feasted on venison and thick round loaves of bread that people ate then. Once more, as in the old days, Hrothgar's queen walked among the warriors, offering each a golden drink from the horn. Once more, harp song drifted out from the echoing mead hall and across the wind-swept moors. But when the feasting was done and the harper ceased his singing, the Skeldings withdrew to safer quarters and left the place to Beowulf. He saw that the fires were banked and that his men were disposed around the lofty chamber on pallets to sleep. Then he unlaced his shirt of chainmail and set it aside with his helmet and sword. Knowing that the creature could not be harmed by human weapons, it must be fought with sinew and muscle alone. Beowulf set himself to face the darkness. He wrapped himself in a cloak and lay down near the hearth. The fire glow faded. The rafters disappeared in the gloom. He listened intently for any sound that might herald the approach of the beast. But he heard nothing except an occasional rustle among the embers and the slow breathing of his fellows. The attack came in a blast of wind, with no more warning than the shudder that traveled through the earthen floor of the hall. The door slammed open like thunder, and a shadow loomed black against the sky. Outside the hall, blotting out the stars, with swiftness that amazed Beowulf, the creature seized the man nearest the door. Before the victim could cry out, his throat was torn open, and his spine snapped by great claws. Beowulf, seeing that he could do nothing, remained still, feigning sleep even though the others had leapt up. Perhaps to deal with the easiest foe first, Grendel had turned and bent to Beowulf where he lay. Then the Geatish warrior, wound like a spring by the hours of waiting, moved, taking the beast by surprise. Eluding the creature's grasp, he locked one of his hands in his own iron grip, bending the blood-slicked claws back against the wrist, like this. Sorry. Grendel writhed, howled, and tried to pull away, but Beowulf was too strong. In the death battle that followed, benches crashed to the ground and embers scattered, setting tiny fires in the hall. The Geatish warriors circled the straining combatants, seeking an opening for a thrust, but whenever they struck, their blades merely glanced off Grendel's hide. With his bare strength, Beowulf still had the enemy's hand, twisting as Grendel pulled. Finally, the arm crackled and broke. The white bone tore through the flesh of the massive shoulder, and still Grendel lurched and jerked. Suddenly, the flesh ripped again, and black blood spouted as if the arm tore free. Wailing as its life drained away, the beast stumbled out into the darkness, seeking its lair. In the mead hall, Beowolf stood sweating and swaying, still holding the clawed arm of Grendel. Then he and his men hung the bloody prize from the highest gable of Herod, and they summoned the Scyldings to witness the triumph. The next night, Herod rang with laughter and singing. The Scyldings slept once more under carved rafters, but the rejoicing came too soon. In the morning, one man was gone. A blood-flecked track in the dirt outside showed that he had been dragged away. Some bestial killer still lived. Old warriors said that it was Grendel's dam, came to take life for a life. While the she-beast survived, raging for vengeance, there was no safety for mortals in the dark hours. Therefore, with Hrothgar and the troops of warriors, Beowulf set out to find Grendel's parent. The company rode from across the fields in the fortress of the Scylding king. Across the moors they traced the bloody trail, sunlight glinting on the bronze fittings of their wooden shields, and on their golden helmets. The track led into the rocky highlands, where the cold winds carried the moans of the wolf song to them. At last they came to a halt beside a lake. Dimness reigned here. The lake, fed by an icy mountain torrent, spread gray under a weeping sky. Black cliffs fringed it, and the ancient ash trees, crusted with lichen and stiff with hoarfrost, grew along the shore. On slimy ledges in the water, serpents flashed and coiled. Bits of flesh bobbled on the surface, and the air was heavy with the odor of decay. The horse backed and shied. The horses backed and shied. The hounds whinnied and cringed. The fear stirred in the hearts of the warrior company. A few of the men knew the lake, having come across it in the course of a hunt. They spoke of it with wonder and dread, saying that a stag they had pursued to this spot chose the mercies of the hunt, rather than plunge into those evil waters and swim for freedom. I'm going to show you a picture, and hopefully you can see it. The screen keeps going dark. So here's a picture, and it's showing the cave, and you see all the bones. Yep, that's in Grendel's lair. And if you see closely, I'm not sure if you could see, I see Beowulf. Do you see the monster that he's fighting? That is Grendel's mother. All right, pretty cool. Beowulf did not reply to the tale, or even seem to hear. He said to a kinsman, "If I die by this, give my greeting and my gold to my king, and serve as protector for my companions in my place." He dismounted, stood a moment at the lake edge as if in contemplation, then dived. No man followed. I don't know why it's so dark. Sorry, guys. Trying, but it keeps going dark. I don't know why. Okay. Beowulf later told how he had descended, and how, lungs bursting, he had been caught by the clawed hands at the mouth of the deep cave and dragged inside. There he had seen the one-armed body of the Grendel, and the grim harvest of human bones around it. He turned to face the body's guardian. His own sword was useless against her, he knew, but another sword, large and gleaming, hung on the cave's wall. A giant's work, he said, and deadlier than any mortal weapon. He seized it, and with a single whistling stroke, he killed her. His companions had presumed him dead, although his past deeds were such that they clung to hope, long past, of the time when any ordinary mortal would have drowned. Then one man gave a shout, and all stared at the water, now stained with blood. A golden helmet broke the surface, and Beowulf emerged. In his hand he bore a trophy, the severed head of the Grendel. The depredations of the night beasts on the Scyldings' island were forever ended, but Beowulf's fame would outlast many a lifetime. Over and over the chronicles told how a mighty warrior alone defeated the powers of darkness. Because of his courage, his name lived for thousands of years. His triumph was all the greater because of the rawness of this world he lived in, The earth was closer to its beginnings then, and old powers, many of them malignant, still throbbed with hidden life. Night, in particular, brought them forth and allowed them to flourish. Out in the profound depths, from the forest to the sea, from hillock to cave, from rock to shadow, crawled the creatures of the nocturne. A cruel and ghastly host, searching for victims among intruding humankind. These beings were vestiges of chaos, remnants of a formless time older than human reckoning. They survived many centuries into the era of humankind, preying on the late coming race in a variety of ways. Some, like the Grendel, seethed with hatred for the intruders and assaulted them in a frenzy of destructiveness. Some were unable to cross human thresholds and had to wait for unwary victims who ventured abroad at night. Some invaded human bodies and turned their hosts into night-stalking animals. These were called werebeasts. Some invaded the bodies of the dead and transformed the corpses into terrible beings that gnawed on human flesh and drank human blood. All were sons and daughters of darkness, freed only after the sun had set and blackness crept across the land. It was no wonder that mortals who held those hours in fearful contemplation, they knew the night for what it was, the living shadow of the dark age before the earth took shape. Whenever people sang of the beginnings, they sang of primal night. Before the creation of life, they said there was only uncomprehending darkness and the borderless void. Love you.